Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Minecraft Bedrock Guide, and today I'm going to show you how to build a brand new multi-item sorter design that uses minecarts to carry your items to a fully sorted storage slice. This design took me an entire week of sweat and tears and building and building some more and destroying some more, so I hope you enjoy it, and I hope you appreciate the work that's gone into this because it's so cool. Let's go take a look. And actually, there's not a whole lot to take a look at yet, just because it's not built yet. We gotta do that part of the video first. But what I do have to show you is a much larger room than I had before. It's quite a bit larger, and it took so long to dig all of this out, even with 2 haste 2 beacons sitting in here. Anyway, all of this brown stuff right here, these represent some chests that are going to go into our multi-item sorters for today. And as you can see, I've pre-labeled everything in each section so that it all makes sense. At least it makes sense to me. And I hope I didn't forget anything because there's thousands of items in the game. And if I did happen to forget something, please, would you help an old BluJay out and remind me of some different categories that you use in your sorting systems? I think I've covered most of the major stuff though. This is where we're gonna start right here. This is the very first bay, and I believe it's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 slices. And the other thing you might notice as well, they're not stacked next to each other. So the first thing that you're gonna think, if you're pretty savvy with Minecraft tech stuff, is this is not one wide tileable. I had to sacrifice the one wide tileable option for a really important reason that you're not gonna wanna skip on for this design. Starting over here with my 3 double chests of materials, this should be everything that I need to build 4 multi-item storage bays with 10 slices each. So there should be 40 different multi-item sorting options in this whole room. And I even left a couple open just in case, again, we missed something or something new is added to the game that we want to put there. Did you know that minecarts don't actually need a rail in order to move? It's a pretty cool trick, and I'm about to show it to you with this line of soul sand. So it's not entirely true. You need the minecart rails to get things started, and I'm actually not sure if this is gonna work. Gives you great confidence in this tutorial, doesn't it? But no, I actually did test this in a testing world, and the minecart rail leading up to the waterway was flat. I don't know that that's going to make any difference, but we're gonna test it out before we go any further, and I'm gonna do that by placing 1 water right here at the very beginning of the soul sand. And yes, it's going to overflow into this area right here. This is absolutely necessary for this to work correctly. Between this unpowered rail and this water pushing back that direction, it's going to slow the minecart down just enough to keep the correct velocity throughout this entire thing. Then you just need to make sure that the rest of these are full water sources so that you get the bubbles popping up from the soul sand. So the every other method will work on this. As long as you don't see any flowing water anywhere else in this waterway except for at the very beginning, you should be good to go. Then starting right here at the very first soul sand, I'm going to put 1 singular chest, which should be in line with my markers right here. And I'm going to go every other one. It doesn't really matter which way you place them. You could do forwards, sideways, backwards, whatever floats your minecart. It's all good either way. I like to use wool for a lot of my redstone infrastructure, and so I'm going to do that with this next part. Starting right here on the side of this chest, I'm going to put 1 piece of wool, and then 1 piece of wool in every gap going forward until we reach the end of the line. So from here, I can go ahead and put my minecart on the track, and I can push it forward and watch the magic happen. Oh yes. That actually looks a little bit too fast. I'm thinking it might be. It looks faster than my test design, but I'm gonna roll with it for now. But hey, minecart tip number 1. You can use bubble vaders with solid blocks or chests over the top to move minecarts along. That's pretty cool. Have I mentioned how much of a hassle minecarts can be? Again, not a good impression of this tutorial, but BluJay's here to clear some things up. So that ramp down option didn't work. So if you're trying to reset your minecart speed to a specific length, which this is what it should be on my world, I don't know what it's going to be on yours. This is a Bedrock dedicated server. It's different on Realms and probably different on local. So you might have to play around with a different combination of powered rails and regular rails leading up to the water stream, but I've gotten this to consistently work. So the minecart starts here, it rolls on around and hits this barrier block, which brings it to a halt, and then drops it down onto this rail and resets the speed to start from here and then land in that water stream and perfectly time with each chest. And you're probably asking, what is it timing with? Well, I've got an observer here, and a sticky piston, and some cyan wool. And the first thing that I want to do is read the chest to identify when a change has been made. This observer will identify when items are added or taken out of that chest. So it's going to power this block, which will then power a forward-facing sticky piston with a solid block attached to it, and that's pretty much it for the first part of this tutorial. I'm only going to put one item in here because that's how we're going to filter these out when we eventually get to putting all of the items in. And here's what's going to happen. When the minecart enters this water stream, it's going to be looking for an item to pull out of one of these chests, and because this is the only one that has things in it to pull, it's going to detect that change and push this piston forward to knock the minecart out of the water stream. Well, that minecart's got to have somewhere to go, so I'm going to put a couple of powered rails in line with this chest and this chest, just so that you can see it will land perfectly in this slot every time, and I'll put a lever right there to power both sets of rails. And now I'm ready for a quick test. So let's pretend that this section over here is the item loader. It's got a chest full of items and it's ready to go read which sorter it should go in, and boom, there it goes. You might notice there is now one cyan wool in this minecart with hopper. There is no longer a wool inside of this chest. That is how these item categorizers work. But the next thing you're probably thinking is, well, if you remove the filter item from there, isn't that going to break the filter? Well, yes, you are correct. But there is a solution for that, which is part of the overall system that we'll get to here in just a moment. Multi-item sorting systems rely on your ability to sort multiple types of items. However, because of the way that these minecarts are going to work, we only want to filter one type of item at a time. And to demonstrate, if I put a minecart here that's completely empty, it's going to pull all three of those items out and knock it into the categorizer, and we absolutely do not want that because there may be some things in here that don't match the filter, and maybe they're supposed to go over here. So only one slot, this last slot to be exact, should have an item that matches what's inside one of the filters. I have an automated way to take care of that, and it has to do with the item input over here, which we'll get to later in the episode. But for now, just know that the first 4 slots have to have a non-stackable item in there, and then the loader will put in one type of item to be sent into the categorizers. So if I put one black wool, one lime wool, and one cyan wool in here, now that this minecart is completely occupied with non-stackables and one type of item to be filtered, when this minecart passes that sorting chest, only the cyan wool is going to get pulled out, and it's going to leave the rest of the filtered items alone. If it is set up properly on a large scale, which this is large scale, I could load up some soul sand in here, which is not going to match any of the filters that I've got in this first bay or that second bay, but it's going to go way over in the third bay on the other side of the room. If I were to run a hopper line through here and filter it through every single section of this storage system, it would take ages to get over to the other side of the room. Think about these bulk silos over here. This is probably going to be last in the entire sorting system. So it's going to have to send items all the way around the room to all of the multi-item categorizers and then to bulk storage silos. That would take ages. So if you have a minecart system like this, where soul sand is way on the other side of the room, when I launch this minecart, it's not going to match anything in here, and so it's going to send the minecart through the waterway, and while this might look a little bit slow right now, it's going to speed up at the next section and send the minecart zooming on to the next filter, which again, on a large scale like this, is probably going to be infinitely faster. I mentioned that you needed to have 4 non-stackable items inside of the minecart. Well, we need a place to drop off those non-stackable items before they reach the final chest, because we don't want those things going into our multi-item sorters. They are just filter objects. That is the problem that this next part solves, and we're going to solve that problem by dropping the minecart down below the waterway. And I'm going to start with 2 powered rails, and then I'm going to leave a gap of 2 blocks for just a second, and I'm going to put 1 hopper facing that direction, and then 1 hopper facing into that, and then 2 hoppers facing that direction, And what this is going to do is drop the minecart down, and one by one, it's going to take all of the non-stackable items out of the first 4 slots. So slot 1, slot 2, slot 3, slot 4, and by the time it gets to here, the only thing left in the minecart are the items that are going to be sent to the storage. But we still have broken our filter by removing one of the items that's in here, so I need a way to quickly deposit that item back into that chest before another minecart makes its way through. Because that next minecart is probably going to have matching items, at least there's a good chance of it, and if that filter item is not there, it's going to send it on through the system, and that doesn't make a very good sorting system now, does it? But I've done a lot of testing on timings, and we've got this thing down to a science. So starting right here, I'm going to go 1 block up, 2 blocks up, and 3 blocks up, and then on the 4th block, I'm going to go 1, 2, and 3, and then I'm going to go 1 block right where that torch is, and that is going to be a bumper to bounce the minecart back this direction. All of these do need to be powered rails, because once the minecart is in the slice, we want it to go as fast as possible to get to the ultimate end point to unload all of the items. At the top of this hill right here, I'm going to break this powered rail, and I'll replace it here in just a moment. But for now, I'm gonna put 1 piece of glass right here and 1 piece of glass right here. And if I put a powered rail on top of that glass and a powered rail right here, it should link up with the top one and not the bottom, which is absolutely what we want. So when a minecart travels through here, it's gonna glitch through that glass, bounce off that back wall, and then come through here and glitch through that glass and continue on to this line momentarily, which is going to cross over the top of a hopper that's connected up right here. But I want a hopper line to go back into that sorting chest. So I'll break this and put a hopper into the side and then run some hoppers back until they meet up with this block right there. Then on top of this hopper right here, I'm going to put 1 solid block and then 1 powered rail. I will break this powered rail temporarily to put a powered rail right here and then reconnect it. And that should shift upward again instead of downward. And then I'm going to go on this back wall, which is exactly 3 blocks away from this piece of glass and powered rail. And I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, and then a block right on top, and then connect up these powered rails right here. And it's going to bounce off 1 more time, 1 more piece of glass right here, break that, place 1 right here, and then reconnect it up. And then I'm going to go up 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And then we're going to bring this forward, and from here the minecart will now only have the items to deposit into the chest, and it will drop onto the top of some hoppers, which we'll get to here in just a minute. I'm gonna leave this alone for now because there's another very important aspect to this system that we don't want to forget. I'm only gonna have 4 double chests in each item category, 2 stacked right here and 2 stacked right here. They will link up to this slice, but what happens when this gets full? I don't want it to continue trying to filter things right here and then sending a minecart full of items up to a completely full storage system. I want it to get sent right on by and all the way on to our bulk storage system. That's what we're gonna solve next. There's a few things to consider while working on this overflow protection, and one of which is being very careful that this doesn't toggle at the wrong time. I only want this piston to toggle when an item leaves this chest, ideally, but unfortunately we're also gonna have to let it toggle while an item is put back into it. This part of the system is actually what took me the longest to figure out. I had a working solution, and then as I was stress testing it, it was punching minecarts into the wrong lanes, or it was blocking them in the water and backing everything up and completely breaking it. So this is what I got to work, and is the very reason why this cannot be one wide tileable. I'm gonna start by taking this up a couple of blocks, and then on the underside of this block right here, I'm going to put 1 downward facing sticky piston, and then I can break this temporary block and put 1 block right next to it, and on the side of this block directly above this first sorting chest, I'm going to put another downward facing sticky piston, and both of these are going to be extended by default. So to get this first one extended, I'm going to start by placing an observer facing that direction on top of this sticky piston with a redstone torch facing out of the back, and 1 redstone dust right here on top of that piston, and this right here is the 1 wide tileable killer, not to mention having to have a way to get the items back to the sorting chest. It was a sacrifice that had to be made. But Once you see this thing working, you're gonna love it. I promise. Next, I'm going to place another block directly on top of this observer with a redstone dust right here, a redstone torch facing out of the side of this block. I'm going to put a temporary block right there, and that's going to cause that to burn out for just a second, and that's okay. And then I'm going to place another sticky piston facing upward right here. I'll break that block and place one torch out of the side of that sticky piston, which should invert that signal. And on top of this sticky piston, I'm going to have an observer facing toward the back of the contraption. So the easiest way to do that is probably just to take another temporary block and put it on the side of this piston right here. And it actually doesn't even have to be temporary. That block is going to be required later. So I'll just put this right here and another block right here and a temporary block right here and another block right there. I'll go ahead and break that for now. And as it stands, everything should look like this for the moment. We're not done yet, but if you need to catch up, this is a great place to pause. Next, I'm going to put a block right here below that observer and next to that sticky piston with a repeater set to 1 tick directly on top of that block, and a block on the side of this repeater with some redstone dust directly on top, followed by a redstone torch right here. Then I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, and I'm going to break this middle block for the moment, and then one repeater right here set to 4 ticks, followed by one piece of glass right here in the middle with redstone dust on top, and that's going to extend that piston to grab that chest. I'll leave this block completely empty, but put one block right here with a torch out the side. So now both of these redstone torches have the opportunity to power this to keep that chest down. That'll be important here in just a moment. Next, I'm going to put one piece of redstone dust right here, followed by a piece of glass out of the side. And on top of that piece of glass, I'm going to put a comparator, and that comparator is going to go into this block right here, and then one more block right here, followed by one more comparator, and a repeater set to 4 ticks. And if I've done everything correctly, that should be almost all of the circuitry. And again, this is going to be a good place for you to pause the video if you want to capture this from a side view, and then you can go ahead and build it on your own. Next, I'm going to take some hoppers and I'm going to put them into the back of these double chests, and I'm going to put one here and one here temporarily. Keep this back hopper in mind. That's going to change in just a little bit. And then another hopper here, and same thing with this one. That one is going to change in a little bit as well. And then your next natural inclination is going to be to put these facing down, because there's no chest up here, but they do have to be facing forward in order for this to work properly. So put a temporary block right here and forward hopper, break that block, and then last but not least, this one can be a downward facing hopper with a hopper right here and a hopper right here. Last but not least, and then I believe this is about ready to test, directly out of this wool block right here that has the observer on the other side is going to be one sticky piston and then one wool block, and I might end up changing this out for a different solid block depending on what I end up doing with decoration, because this is going to be visible from the ground over here. I want to be able to see all the fun minecart action going on, so we'll have to take that into consideration, I think. And that should be about everything. Now let me give you a quick demonstration of how this works, because it is a pretty big mess of redstone. This solves a couple of problems. The first problem that it solves is overflow protection. If these double chests get full, they're going to start filling up these hoppers, and if this hopper up here can no longer send items forward, then it is going to tell this comparator, hey, lift that chest up. Allow me to demonstrate. I'm going to test this by taking out this hopper right here and that hopper right there, because this hopper and that hopper both have to be full of items. So this is simulating this hopper as if it's full, because this can't go anywhere, and it's sending out a signal, which is powering this block, which is turning that torch off, which should release that chest, except that torch is still powered right there. That's what this top hopper takes care of. If I put something in here, then it deactivates that torch and it pulls this chest up, and at the same time it toggles, I don't know if you saw it or not, this block up and down real fast. The reason this part is necessary is because once this chest moves in front of that observer, it's going to power that block and send a signal to push that forward. This is where things were breaking in my test world. On a different design, this observer was toggling this and punching minecarts at the wrong time. So when this chest gets pulled up, this piston is pulling this block out of the way of that observer so that it never powers that piston below, which then will never push the minecart out of the way. So now we are simulating this as if it is completely full. No more items can go in these chests. This is retracted, and anytime a minecart goes by here, it's just going to pass on by because this chest is too high for any items to get pulled out and sent on over to the sorting slice. Again, this will only happen when those two chests and all of the hoppers are full and can no longer store any items. And in that case, we don't want to sort any more items and we want to send it on through the system over to our bulk storage. Does all of that make sense? I know it's a lot. It's kind of crazy. But there's one more thing to consider before we can call this slice done and before I can start replicating this all throughout the entire room. The minecart is going to land perfectly in between this hopper and this hopper so that it double unloads the minecart and keeps things moving faster. And I actually put this at the exact correct distance. I don't know if I just got lucky or if I've built this so many times that I know exactly where things should go. Anyway, I'm gonna go down here into my handy dandy tool chest and grab some trap doors. From here, I'm going to go out 1, 2, and 3 blocks, and then I'll break these 2 and jump back over here and place 1 trapdoor right here and 1 trapdoor on top, and then flip them both open. And then I'm going to leave this block here temporarily to put another block underneath it because that's going to be important for powering the rails where the minecart exits the system. And now the only thing left to do before giving this a quick test is to make sure all of these rails are powered. And personally, I think the cheapest way to do that is with levers. Okay. I think we're ready to give this first slice a quick test just to make sure everything works like it should before I start building 39 more of these. In the minecart, I've got 4 non-stackable items. They won't be my netherite gear. They'll probably be wooden shovels or something. And some lime wool. In this first categorizer, there is lime wool. Another thing to keep in mind as well, I wish it didn't work this way. Maybe I'll leave a comment for Mojang on their feedback channel. But when you move these pistons, if there were a double chest here, so if I put this sideways and put another chest here to make it a double chest to get 54 items, when this moves up, it breaks the double chest, keeping the other single chest down here, which is fine. But when it moves back into place, it doesn't reconnect. It stays as 2 separate single chests. I don't know if that's a bug or intentional behavior, but that is another limiting factor of this particular design. If you want the overflow protection, which I think you absolutely need, then you can only have 27 different types of items instead of the 54 that you would get with a double chest right here. All of that to say, let's give it a go. And hopefully that minecart is going to end up there and unload the 6 lime wool that we've got in there. Please work. Please, please, please work. Oh, it's working. Yes, absolutely amazing. And there it goes. So there's no track for it to go on just yet. So that minecart's just going to sit there, but there's 4 lime wool in there. Where's the other 2? Oh, there's 1, and there's 2. It's stuck. I forgot to hook it back up. Test number 1 is a failure. Actually not, it's actually a success. I didn't succeed in the way that I had wanted to. Let me explain really quick why there are now 2 items in here. Depending on which direction your system is facing, this hopper right here might pick up 2 items on the way by. This storage unit and probably one of the back wall storage units will pick up 2 items. It won't affect the system. It won't break it. Just your first time sending items through, you may end up with 1 less than you originally had because they're going to be in the filter. But this one over here, because it's facing the opposite direction, probably won't do that. And I'm assuming one of these, or both of them actually, because they're facing the same way. At any rate, directional. Directional matters because reasons. I don't know why Minecraft is programmed this way. I don't know why hoppers, pistons, various redstone components react differently based on direction. In my opinion, they should all work the same way regardless of which way they're facing, but I didn't design the game. So if you end up with 1 less item, it's not a big deal. This whole system will still work. I've stress tested it. Both directions. Everything should be just fine. The minecart doesn't have anywhere to go after it gets punched forward by this block onto a rail. That's why we need a return line, but I'm not going to address that just yet until we get the item input completely built. And before I do that, I'm gonna take some time off camera, or maybe in a stream, and I'm gonna crank out all 39 of these item categorizers before we do anything else. You won't know any different. It's gonna be like a half a second swoosh, just like this. Swoosh. We're back. Hello. After, what, 3 or 4 days and a 2.5 hour live stream? Oh, it was a ton of work, but we're back with some massive progress. I did realize very quickly, thankfully, I built the first categorizer slice 1 block too low, so I had to shift it all up, and then the rest fell in line. So I've got 10 here, 10 there, 10 over there, and 10 over there, for a total of 40 different categorizers in the entire system. And you're gonna notice as well, I've got some cobbled deep slate lining the room. We'll get to that here in just a second. But before I move on to the item input, I wanna show you a quick test of how this is going to work in a real world situation. So I've got some oak logs here, and I'll grab one of my minecarts, and I'm gonna go ahead and toss all of those logs in the last slot right here and put non-stackables in the first 4. And when I send this minecart on its way, it should hit this first slice. Beautiful, incredible, amazing. Go ahead, minecart on up to the top. And now all of my logs are filtering into the storage. And next, I'm gonna go ahead and toss in the leaves and, once again, 4 non-stackables. And now this one should pass on through into the storage system a little bit farther to the appropriate slice, which should be right there. Oh no. Oh no, oh no, oh no. BluJay, what just happened? Panic mode. In all of my testing, that has not happened yet. Oh my goodness. Oh no! Please excuse me while I melt down and try to figure this out. Oh no. Oh no, oh no, it did it again. Okay, so that actually is not a bad thing. Okay, I know it seems like a bad thing, and I'm freaking out a little bit on the inside. I just want to crawl up in a corner and cry, but at least it is displaying consistent behavior, because then we can fix consistent behavior. If it's inconsistent, we got a little bit more to worry about. I'm going to troubleshoot this for a couple of minutes, and I'll let you know when it's working like it should. Go ahead and wish me luck in the comments. I'm gonna need it. Okay, we're back, and I've got good news and I've got great news. You thought I was gonna say bad news, didn't you? The good news is it works. The great news is it works consistently and at variable speeds. This is another minecart tip that you need to know. Minecarts move at different speeds based on how many items are present in each of the slots. So if I put 33 items in here, which is going to be optimal for our loader, it's going to move a little bit slower. I've adjusted the waterway here at the beginning, and I've added another powered rail right there to give it a little bit more of a boost, and so far, it has not failed. I've tested it like 4 or 5 times, and it's working perfectly. Thank you very much. Then, if I go over and I take some of this smooth stone, and I've got about half as much as I had before, the minecart is going to move slightly faster, but it should not affect anything at all, and we'll watch it go on down to the end of the row there, and boom, we've got smooth stone loading into the system. Absolutely perfect. Now, the one other section that I was a little worried about, which we have nothing to worry about, I've tested it and it works, is this first one right here. If the minecart comes in a little bit too hot, it might miss this piston pusher entirely and hit the next slice. And so far, I've not had that issue, and that is primarily because I've extended the waterway, and I've also taken out the flowing water as well. So everything except for right here is a bubble column. This is where this tutorial is a little bit more for advanced redstone players. Anyone can build this, but it's going to take a little bit of troubleshooting, patience, and skills to make sure that this works exactly how you need it to, so that it doesn't fail. So if you've gone through all of this and you've built this and your minecarts are getting flipped any which way and they're not going to the slices, the culprit is probably the rail speed at which it hits the waterway, and this is where you're gonna have to do most of your tinkering to get those speeds worked out perfectly, so that you know it works fast and it works slow. So far, so good on that front. And boom, it hits that first slice with no issues. So this is 100% working. Here's where this gets a little bit more fun. All of these slices are connected, and it's super fun to watch these minecarts go through here. And I cannot wait to see what this looks like when the full storage system is completely finished. There's gonna be minecarts everywhere. I know I'm gonna regret doing this, but we'll make adjustments if we need. I'm gonna rip this out for now. Hopefully this won't affect anything, and it will slow down just as much as it did before right here and go into the waterway with no troubles. But you know what? I needed to get rid of that so we can start building the item input, which is going to go, I think, maybe right here. Let's do there. That seems good. Okay, seems like a good starting point. I'm gonna go ahead and break this block, and I'm gonna break that block. And then directly on top of this block right here, I'm going to put one honey block, and then I'm going to put a honey block right next to it with one wool directly on top. I'll break that wool and then place one powered rail right here. And then I'm going to put a temporary block right here, followed by one glazed terracotta, and then break that so that there is a single air gap between those two blocks. Honey cannot stick to glazed terracotta, which is why we've put that there. From here, I can go ahead and reconnect the track, and maybe I'll bring back the black wool since that's what we've used for the track previously. And then I'll drop a lever directly underneath here to power the 3 powered rails or 4 powered rails that are sitting right here. This one needs to remain unpowered for the moment. Then I'm going to put another piece of wool, which might end up getting replaced with another block at some point right next to that, because I'm going to have a minecart track going this direction and it needs to bump right here. And just for good measure, because you never know how minecarts are going to react in corners, I'm going to fill this spot right here as well. Next, I'm going to put a glazed terracotta right here so that this block does not get pulled forward when those pieces of honey move, followed by one rail right here. And then next to this glazed terracotta, I'm going to put 1, 2, and 3 pieces of wool. And then I'll put one more piece of wool right here. And then my greatest nightmare has finally come true. I have to dig some more because there's not enough room for this thing to go in there. Oh no, it's fine. We'll carry on for now. Put a detector rail right there, and then 2 more powered rails right here. Out of the side of this detector rail, I'm going to put a piece of wool right here with 1 redstone dust directly on top. And then I'm going to go down on the next block right here and put 2 blocks of wool with 2 repeaters set to 4 ticks. 1 block of wool right here, 2 more blocks of wool with 2 more repeaters set to 4 ticks. 1 block of wool right here, 1 block of wool right here with a repeater set to 4 ticks. And then 1 more block of wool right here, 4 blocks of wool this time, and 4 repeaters on top. And you guessed it, all 4 of these are set to 4 ticks. And finally, for the first part of this circuit, I'm going to put a sticky piston facing out of this repeater right here. So here's what's going to happen so far. If a minecart rolls over this detector rail, it's going to start a repeater clock. So it's going to sit in this spot until all of these repeaters sequentially trigger to power this piston, which will move both of these honey blocks along with this wool and that rail forward to connect up right here. This will receive power from right here, and because it's next to a solid block, the minecart will get sent on its way. This next part, I'm just going to go ahead and cross my fingers and hope that this works, because I have tested it on a local world and I have tested it on a realm. But both of those scenarios work apparently very differently than a Bedrock dedicated server, which is where we're playing on the Bedrock guide. But timings are very, very, very important for this next part as well. Otherwise, it's not going to work correctly and the whole thing just falls apart. So I'm going to put 1 chest directly on top of this rail right here. And then I'm going to put 2 temporary blocks on this side of the rail, break this one, and then put a forward-facing dispenser right here. This is where the minecarts are going to go, and this is where the non-stackable items are going to go. From here, I'm going to go ahead and place a couple of blocks down so that I've got a place to put some redstone out of the back of the dispenser. And then I'm going to go 1 block this way, another block this way, and then 2 blocks this way so that it creates a little bit of a square loop. And then on top of this wool right here, I'll put redstone dust, and then a repeater facing that direction toward this wool set to 4 ticks. 1 redstone dust here, 1 redstone dust here with a target block right here, and then 1 redstone dust here. Once I've got all of this complete, I'm going to go ahead and curve this redstone circuit this direction with 1 redstone dust right here. And then I'm going to curve it again, but I'm going to elevate the block 1 so that it's sitting directly next to that redstone dust and put redstone dust right here. From here, I'm going to create a standard Etho hopper clock. So I'll put a temporary block right here with a hopper facing this direction and then a hopper facing this direction. I already have a block right here, which we placed earlier, that I'm going to put a comparator directly on top of. Then I'll put another block right here, and that's the wrong spot right here. There we go. With a comparator facing this direction, 1 block right here, 1 redstone dust there, 1 block right here, and then 1 redstone dust on top, with a regular piston here, a regular piston there, and then by default, I'm going to go ahead and put the redstone block right there. Last but not least, I'm going to take 1 piece of wool and place it on top of this piston right here, with a comparator facing out of the item input chest. 1 block right here, followed by 1 redstone torch right there. And I do believe this entire thing is fully completed. Well, mostly. There's a couple other things we need to consider, but the core functionality is here. I am going to put exactly 11 items inside of this hopper clock, and they're all going to filter over into this hopper and get locked until any item is put into the input chest. When an item enters the input chest, it's going to trigger this clock, which is going to send a redstone signal once this block aligns with that redstone line to do 2 things. First, the redstone that's connecting to this target block is going to power this dispenser, which is going to launch a minecart onto this rail. This rail is then going to pick up 4 non-stackable items. While it's doing that, this repeater is going to go through its 4-tick cycle and then send the redstone signal to here, which is going to power that rail and send the minecart on its way. If this works correctly, this should be the exact timing we need in order for the minecart to pick up 4 non-stackable items and then get sent onto the actual item loader, where it's going to cross paths with this detector rail and start this timing circuit so that it picks up exactly 33, I hope, items and sends the minecart on into the system. And that's it. Now, there is one thing missing: minecart retrieval. That honestly is the simplest part of this, and I'm not even going to show it on camera because I can explain it all pretty simply once it's done. It does involve a cactus. It involves some hoppers that feed things back into the loading chests. But one thing I do want to point out to you that you may not know. I didn't know this before I started this video, and I do know it now, which is really cool. If you have a series of rails that are all going the same direction like this, and I happen to put a rail line perpendicular to this, which is exactly what I'm gonna do on a large scale around the room, I need to know that these minecarts are gonna go a certain way. And because Minecraft is crazy and strange and weird, it does exactly that. So even though this is going straight into a perpendicular rail and it's not curving one way or the other, this rail will carry the minecart the same direction every time, so I shouldn't have any problems with minecarts going that direction and then bumping into a minecart that's trying to go that direction. Everything will go the exact same way. So how do I know this? Well, handy dandy coordinates in the top left corner of the screen will tell me exactly where the minecart rails are gonna go. Minecart rails go in the positive X and positive Z direction. So since this minecart track right here is going in the X direction, minecarts will always go that way. They will never go that way. However, if I flip it over here and I have my perpendicular rails going this direction, the minecarts are always going to go this direction. So I need to keep that in mind when I'm feeding my rails back toward the item input for recycling. That is my next project to tackle, and then I truly am ready for a massive full-scale test of this multi-item categorizer system. I'm gonna do my best to keep this short and sweet because I just took a look at the video length and it's quite long, as you already know because you've watched this far. Hopefully you've watched this far. Please like and subscribe if you have. And hey, by the way, Actions and Stuff 1.2 just came out. Look at my glowy lightsaber. That's not what we're working on right now. Sorting system. If I open my inventory, this is what a semi-typical inventory would look like if I went on a massive resource gathering mission where I just gathered the most random things I could possibly think of. And I have items that are represented in each of the 4 slices of the room. And here is what I have discovered in my stress testing, that it's very stressful. And also I had to put 3 additional items in the hopper clock. That does not affect how many items each minecart carries, but it did delay the launching of the next minecart just by a little bit longer to keep things rolling in a smooth fashion. A couple other things that I discovered. I built this room way too big. Leave it up to BluJay to overcomplicate stuff. Hopping into spectator mode, you can see this is quite large, and from across the room, all the chests just go out of render because entity rendering is absolutely atrocious. However, that is just a visual thing. As long as your simulation distance is high enough to allocate for something like this, then you should be good to go. My simulation distance was on 8, and I bumped it up to 12, and after I did that, I didn't have any issues. The main issue was, if I was standing way over in that corner over there and a minecart was going through the water right here, it would hit the edge of the simulation distance and just stop. Yeah, that's not what you want. You need the minecarts to keep moving, which kind of brings me to another point about this system in general. It is very fast. It loads things very quickly, but you need to stay in the area until it is finished. If you log out, I don't really know what happens. I haven't tried that, but if you do leave the area and unload these chunks, any minecarts that are currently in the waterways are gonna stop and they won't resume motion when you come back and load the chunks again. So there's a bit of a trade-off. I still think this is a really great way to do storage. I kind of have to say that because I've spent a month building this, but even at that, this thing is pretty cool. Let me show you. As soon as I load any items into this chest, it is going to immediately launch the minecart. And the rest is history and magic and amazingness, as long as this doesn't break. Which it shouldn't. I've tested this over and over and over and over and over. And we'll watch the first minecart just kind of make its way into the sapling lane. And there it goes. Absolutely perfect. I'm gonna jump back into spectator mode again as well, just so you can see everything going. I've got the return line, which runs into a cactus and pops that minecart right back into the system to be recycled and used again. There's also this dropper elevator that's going off rapidly right now, and that is returning all of the shovels back to their storage to be reloaded into the minecarts, and those all come in through hopper lines that go underground from each section. This is not my design either, right here. This dropper elevator is Prowl's design, so go check out his channel, and you can watch the tutorial there on how to build this. You might notice as well, I've got these bumpers right here, and some bumpers right here. I've got them strategically placed. Maybe I could do a little bit better job of strategically placing the bumpers over here. What I have found in this system is that every once in a while, not very often, especially after I've slowed this thing down, a minecart will bump into another minecart and send it flying backwards. Not a big deal. It never happens on loading. It's always on the return lane. And these bumpers help the minecarts to self-correct themselves, so you don't have to do a single thing. I've watched it happen probably a handful of times, and every single time it's worked itself out. It is going to be ridiculously fun to sit here and watch these minecarts roll around while it's loading, especially when it's all decorated and nice looking. Right now it's a big spaghetti mess. So here's what I've got left to do. Most of these slices are not fully categorized yet. All of the ones here are, but none of the rest of these, except for the designated items that I chose for the stress test, are categorized, so I need to do that off camera as well. But I also need to add in the filler chests on the sides. And remember earlier what I said we needed to do? We gotta break these hoppers right here and redirect them to the side. So I'm gonna put one hopper, one hopper, one hopper, one hopper, and then another hopper and another hopper. And now, anytime a minecart lands on this slice, it's going to evenly distribute the items between the 4 chests, and everything will work the same way. Only once this hopper up here and this hopper up here are completely full will this overflow protection lift up and send everything onto bulk. And speaking of bulk, that's what we're gonna be working on in the next episode. But for today, we gotta call it good because this Enderman is really mad. So I hope you guys enjoyed. Be sure to leave a like, subscribe if you're new, and we'll see you in the next episode.